fascinating. You talk to people who lived in socialist countries. This is where it gets interesting. If you ask them what they remember about the socialist countries that they liked, they'll tell you very strange things that sound a little bit weird. They'll tell you things like, quote, "We were happy all the time." Now, what does that mean? We were happy all the time. That can't be true. People must have lost relatives. People must have... But the state in the socialist countries cultivated happiness, right? The state worked very, very hard to try and keep people in an upbeat mood all the time, right? The state, and this became even a thing that socialism was attacked for, right? They talk about some government bureaucrats saying the state orders you to be happy, the state orders you to be happy. But this was a reality, right? You listen to those Mao songs that people like, socialism is good, or without the Communist Party, there would be no new China. And they have this very upbeat, happy tone. The state was constantly working to make people happy, and it was constantly mobilizing people to get stuff done, to go out and build, to go out and construct, right? One thing I will say that I remember, and I'm very critical, I'm very frustrated with the communist groups I was in. But one thing that I thought was very, very good, I went to the memorial for a comrade who died. I'm not even going to say his name. But I remember that there was an individual who was in one of these parties that I was with for many years, and he died. And he was like 80 years old at the time that he died. And he was an older man, and he was Jewish, and he lived in New York City, and he was a communist. And he wore every day a ball cap, baseball cap, with Palestine on his hat. Every day, everywhere he went. He had an apartment in Manhattan, and he walked around, and he went to protests, and he volunteered, and he was retired. Everywhere he went, he wore a baseball cap with Palestine on it. And we know that in New York City, you're not going to get much love for wearing a Palestine baseball cap everywhere you go. It's not going to win you, a lot of friends and respect. But every time you saw this man, this older man, short, every time you saw him, he lit up. And he was constantly telling you, "I just met someone the other day, 26 years old, and he told me that I was so cool for wearing this Palestine baseball cap, and he gave me thumbs up. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it." Every time you saw him, "I just gave the communist newspaper to somebody in Lower Manhattan, and he loved it, and he's going to get a subscription for his whole family." Every time you saw him, he was glowing with positivism. He would tell you positive things. Positive things. Moscow Does Not Believe in Tears movie. I haven't seen it. He would tell you positive things. And we know that when he was walking around Manhattan as an older Jewish American wearing a Palestine baseball cap, we know people went up to him and said, "You terrorist, you self-hating Jew, how dare you." But he never told us about that. Never did he ever tell us about that. Never. Never once did he ever tell us about that. You know that when he tried to give people the communist newspaper, people said to him, "Get that commie stuff away from me, you filthy, rotten communist." But he never told us about it. Never told us about it. Every time we saw him, every time we saw this older man, so upbeat, so charming, just a happy fellow. And he was constantly telling you, "Oh, I just gave the newspaper to this people." And he was giving you positive energy, right? And that was what made him such a special person. He gave you energy to keep going on the socialist project and keep getting things done because he was putting out positivism. Really. It's really beautiful. And again, right, part of what made socialist culture, right? so powerful was that these people in these socialist and communist groups would encourage each other. And they were constantly full of positivism, and they were constantly pushing each other to do better and to do more and to get things going. It was really beautiful. And that was when these groups were at their strength, right? Not where they're at now, as they're isolated and whatnot. But when these groups were at their strengths, they eluded this kind of positive energy. And they would all be together, and they'd be working to carry out some goal. And it would be like the 5-year plans, right? That's what people, you talk to these older people who lived under Stalin and all that, they tell you about the 5-year plans. Crazy story here, right? I'm going way back. I'm going back to when I was younger, right? When I was a kid, right? My family, we're in this little small town area, but there was a program where you would host, you'd take out to dinner once a week a foreign student from a local college. So when I was 10 or 11 years old, we hosted, that meant we took them out to dinner once a week, a foreign student from Bulgaria. And I was 10 or 11, and he was 22. He'd been in the military in Bulgaria already. We talked to him, and we would ask him about his country and all of that. And I remember this foreign student we hosted from Bulgaria. We asked about communism. And of course, he was anti-communist. Yeah, it was awful, repressive, totalitarian regime, whatnot. I was 10. I didn't really know much. But I said something like, well, did anyone support the communists at the beginning? And I remember this 22-year-old Bulgarian student said, yes, yes, yes. And then he proceeded to tell me that his grandfather was one of the most loyal communists until the day he died. And I said, why? And he said, well, because after World War II, Bulgaria had no roads. And my grandfather was a young man, and the communists organized all these young people to go and build roads all over the country. And he said that his grandfather and all the young men from Bulgaria had gone out and paved roads all over the country. And they felt great about it. And they were doing something great and working for the country. And that every time he'd seen his grandfather, when this, decades later, his grandfather would go on about how great it was when Georgy Dimitrov and the Communist Party mobilized them all to go and build roads. They were working together, this collective effort. We are going to work together and build something new and engage in progress and build something and work hard and create something together, and it's going to be amazing. That was this glowing memory. That was the strength of the Soviet Union. That was the strength of China. That's the strength of Bolivarian socialism. It's this ability to get people in groups together and to get them thinking positively and get them working together for a joint goal, to get them aiming at the future, to get them having a positive attitude, right? Right? It's a kind of happiness. It's a kind of happiness that one doesn't get simply from making money. It's a kind of happiness one doesn't get from having sex and playing video games. It's a special kind of happiness, this feeling, I'm in a group of people, we have a goal we are working hard at, and we are going to work hard at it, we're going to sacrifice together, we're going to hold each other up, we're going to support each other. It's a kind of happiness that people experience in this society. People volunteer together. People in church groups feel it, but it's a special kind of happiness. And that special kind of happiness, that collectivism, that belief that we're all in this together, we're working hard, that is the special collective mindset, right? That really, really made what you could call really existing socialism or real socialism very powerful and continues to manifest itself even in 21st century socialism. And again, I'm talking psychologically here, I'm talking subjectively here, and forgive me, I'm not sticking to the classical Marxist narrative, I'm not talking about economic, numbers or dictatorship of the proletariat, I'm talking about how people feel, right? And I'm telling you that people felt that way when Roosevelt sent them out to build hospitals and schools, with the Works Progress Administration. People felt that way in the effort to defeat slavery. Abraham Lincoln pulled these feelings out of people. Strong, powerful, good leaders have the ability to pull this kind of feeling out of people. This selfless positivism, this joint effort. It's very, very beautiful. And you know, I'm talking about mindsets. I'm talking about psychology here. This isn't classical Marxist analysis, but I'm telling you that city builders, right? That's why I wrote this book, City Builders and Vandals in Our Age. The city building tendency has the ability to get people to experience a very special kind of happiness. The happiness, the love that comes from building and constructing and being part of a group and working very, very, very hard. That's what I'm trying to get at. Space Communist says, much love, brother, and thank you. I mean, I'm doing the best I can here, right? But this kind of mentality, this is what we're trying to do, right? This is very much what the Socialist Project is about. And I hope that I've addressed